Okay, at this time, we have exhausted the agenda for our work session. We are very much behind, but we'll be okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go right into executive session, and I will read those items in. We'll take that vote, and then we will come to public session. We're going to probably come to public session around 7:45 because we do have the evals and other things that we've got to handle. So at this time, we're way beyond the 6 o'clock hour. I certainly appreciate my colleagues. Dr. Witherspoon, thank you all for your presentation. We are now at the beginning of executive session. What is the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers and second by Commissioner Bishop to go into executive session. We'll now go to the point of question and discussion.
Are you going to announce the topics?
After executive session is approved. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote.
To see changes.
Either manual or electronic? You good? Electronic? Manual? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose say nay. The ayes have it. We are going into executive session to discuss the following. 5.1 is personnel matters, which include evaluations for employees with the initials EW and KW. Office of Human Resources is the HR personnel updates, and 6.2 is the hiring of personnel. At this time, we're in executive session. Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. We're returning back from executive session. Our executive session did conclude at 7:08 p.m. with a motion from Commissioner Devine that was seconded by Commissioner Clyburn, and the vote was unanimous to end executive session at 7:08 p.m. At this time, we will call our public session to order, and we will start with our invocation on tonight, being presented by Commissioner Jamie Devine.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Let us bow. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this day. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for those here tonight, our board members, our staff, our faculty, our community, our students that may be listening on tonight, that we perform tonight well with the works that we have before us. Ask you to guide us with this agenda, that what we do is for student outcomes and less adult outcomes, and that we come together as a group, as an organization, to do what is right, to do your work and your will and your way. Continue to guide this district into the great district that we know it is, and continue to allow us to continue to be great as an organization that is part of this great community. Now we ask these and all of the blessings. We say amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine, for providing our invocation. At this time, we will call for the adoption of the agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bishop, second by Commissioner Devine. We'll open the floor for question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Eva, are we manual? Electronic, okay. Let the record reflect that the vote is unanimous to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. At this time, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and if there's no objection from the board, we can read both of those items in. The minutes for September 27th, 2022, and a contract extension for Smart Learning Suite subscription. Sweet.
Madam Chair, move for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved by Commissioner Devine and second by Commissioner Bishop. We'll open the floor for question or discussion. Commissioner King?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm just puzzled. The board just voted on the new procurement, where board doesn't need to approve any contracts, and there are two of those tonight, so I'm all confused.
Dr. Witherspoon, you want to respond to that?
Yes, we have, as the board has approved, certainly the policy as it relates to procurement, the procurement code, but those changes will be going into effect on November 1st, Ms. Outing, if I'm not mistaken, or Ms. Matthews Hazel.
That is correct.
So until then, we will still bring the items as previously done.
So what's November 1st? Because the code was effective as of July 1st, so.
There was some training and information that has to be shared with staff before that time. So we wanted to be sure those things are in place, that information sharing, that training, and those parameters are in place before that.
Okay, I'm not really sure what that means, but so that means that, one thing I did understand that is that starting November 1st, the board will not vote anymore on any contracts. Is that right?
That they're in the procedures that are being worked through, and some of this had been talked about, to that $250,000 mark and up would still be coming to the board. Also legal and some other things. And that's some information, again, we will be sharing back out with you all. That was and that's another reason for that November 1 date. So again, all those pieces can be in place.
Okay, well, pardon me for extending this, but today is the first meeting in October. There's only one in October. That's October 25th, and then November 1 is the information coming at the October 25th meeting? Is that what it is?
That's some information that we'll be sharing and we will be working through that.
Okay, I'll take that as a yes, thank you.
And Dr. Wisdom, for clarification, board approved the policy. What you're working through is the administrative rule, the way you're going to carry out the policy for the board, correct?
Right, through
Okay.
those procedures,
Right.
through those.
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure that the board understand two things are going on here. Policy has already been approved. Superintendent is working on the administrative rule because that is his responsibility in how he carries out the policy we've put in place.
Ms.
Okay, if there-
Ms. Harris, the policy stated no amount, so I don't know what the,
But the policy, Ms. King, didn't need to necessarily say the amount. The superintendent, if you remember, he said, "I hear you, board." So he put the threshold there of 250,000 because we asked for that. So that's the way that he's going to carry out the policy we've put in place by putting that threshold in there, really at the request of the board, in the rule, the way that the policy is carried out for the district.
is the administrative rule also going to state that for any contracts that would have come before the board at 50, that there's at least on board docs a list of those contracts so that
That
they're
information will
transparent?
be shared.
Okay, all right, sounds good, thanks.
Okay? Everybody good? All right, we'll call for the vote. Let the record reflect the items previously stated under the consent agenda, the minutes, and the contract extension have both been approved, and the vote is unanimous. We'll now move to the Office of Operations. If there's no objection from the board, we'll read all three items in. First item is a contract to provide provisioning solution and single sign-on portal, contract to provide CDL driver training simulator, and a contract for legal services. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers, second by Commissioner Devine. We'll now open the floor for any questions or discussions.
Madam Chair, I'd like to take these items individually.
Okay, Ms. King, I asked that question at the beginning.
Well, no, but you were so fast. This is not a consent agenda. I mean, why take them all if they're not in the consent agenda, they're not in the consent agenda.
Ms. King, this is not the first time that I've read items in. Today is
know.
not new. You've been here 10 years. This isn't
But
nothing
then
new.
put them in the consent agenda.
Ms. King, I asked the board, would you like to take an item separate? All you had to say was Ms. Harris.
And you continued really fast, but no, I do want to say, I do
Well,
want
your
to
mic
take
wasn't on?
these.
I mean, you could have stopped me, and
Do you
that's
have,
fine.
is that a no? Is that a no?
Ms. King.
Can we not take these individually? Is that a no?
Ms. King, your wish is my command. If
Okay,
you would
well,
like,
perfect. Then let's
if-
take them individually
If you would
and
like
move
to
on.
take them individual, I will go back just for you.
Oh, well,
for
thank
the
you. I
sake
appreciate that.
Of peace and being a
And
leader.
the good business and
Right,
transparency
so
of the
what
district.
we're gonna do is we're going to take each item, and trust me, there was no issue with reading them all in because we can still entertain any questions.
Thank you.
That's the point. We still can entertain any questions on any of these contracts. So, to my colleagues, I beg your indulgence, but for the sake of our colleague, I want to be fair, and we're going to go item by item. The first item is the contract to provide provision and solution.
Madam Chair? You
Yes.
have a motion on the floor.
That is correct.
That's been moved and seconded. Now, if someone wants to make a friendly amendment to the motion, you can do that.
Thank you, parliamentarian. Is there an amendment? Commissioner Lomanak.
I just got a question. I've got questions about just one of these. Can we still
Yes, we can.
have those discussions?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
So we can still have a discussion about individual
Correct.
That is correct,
contracts
Mr.
either
Lomax.
way, because I think that's the biggest concern is making
Yes.
sure we can do that.
Correct.
Okay, there's no amendment. It's been moved properly second. We will now
Open the floor.
open the floor for any questions. And we'll start with 10-1, which is to provide provision and solution in single sign-on portal. Floor is open. Okay, we'll go to number 2, the contract to provide CDL driver training simulator. Commissioner King.
Thank you. All right, so what is this? Other than,
We have staff. We have staff coming up to
okay.
speak to the item. Ms. Outing, if you would, while staff is coming up, just from a procurement standpoint, please read the item in.
Right.
Did Mr. Allen talk about it?
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon, the administration is requesting approval to award a contract to L3 Harris Technologies to provide CDL driver training simulator. The administration so recommends.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the administration.
No. It's
We don't need to
No,
do all of
just-
that.
right,
That is
just
right.
the-
We can go ahead
Now
and
we
start
have-
with the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ms. Outing.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Dinkins, how are you? Who's that?
Mr.
Oh, it's
Allen.
Alvin. Who's that?
Alvin.
Oh, how are you?
Good, good.
Good.
I just want to say good evening first of all. But the simulator is another way of virtual.
Can you speak it, do you mind raising it
Hello?
up?
All right, you can hear me better?
Yeah, perfect.
All
Thank
right,
you.
the simulator is like a virtual reality where the kids get the same experience of driving a truck, but it's in virtual reality. We know that our kids cannot get in the rig truck, the big rig truck, training until they really are 21 to get the license. So we want to afford them the opportunity to go through the simulation so they can connect to training for down the road. Because we want our kids not only to go through the CDL coursework, but to also get jobs in CDL when they turn 21. So this way they'll have a step above the rest of the competition because they already know how to drive a CDL truck virtually.
So, well, I've got several questions. So, currently, so where is this being installed? And what form is it? Because there are so many different types of simulators, right? I mean, from just a computer software to having really the commands to having an entire booth. I mean, the range is, so what kind of simulator is that?
So your first question, it'll be installed at where the CDL program is, and that is at Eau Claire. And it will be they'll have to sit down while they in a truck, like they're gonna sit down. They're going to have the steering wheel, they're going to have the gear shifts, and then they're going to have screen TVs going around them where they can actually look like it appears like driving down the road where they can see the right and the left and the front vision and have the rear view mirror so they can actually get all that. So it appears that they are driving the truck. So they'll be sitting down like they really are in a big rig truck.
It's kind of like a booth?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it will not be like a regular booth. But it's going to be big screen TVs around, but it won't be all the way enclosed.
And is it one or is it several?
It's one big one.
Okay, and so that for $100,000, that's a pretty sophisticated run, right?
Yeah, and the equipment will last up to 10 plus years, so we wouldn't have to get new equipment or anything. Now, as we know, technology always changes, so after about 3 or 4 years, we'll need an upgrade.
Okay.
with the technology. But the equipment itself, it lasts over 10 years, 10 plus years.
And so right now, I mean, how many students how many students have gone through the program?
Can I get Dr. Weiler? She can tell you that because she's been in the program, working with the program longer than I have.
Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening. Yes, so basically, we have had an average of about, in each of the courses that we've had, about 15 to 20 students in the program because it is governed by the state program. So right now, we're averaging about 15 students in each of the classes. And right now, we can successfully say we have the whole program that has been state approved in the state of South Carolina. So we're keeping it smaller and more intimate so that we can make sure the students do have the relevant and rigorous one-on-one training with one instructor. We'd love to grow the program to have more instructors, that we could grow the program even more if we had a second instructor. But right now, the students are getting more one-on-one with the instructor, and this amazing simulator is going to take the program to the ultimate level that it needs to be.
And how many kids, so the program is about, what, 5 years old, 6 years old?
Yes, ma'am. We're in the 5th year.
And how many kids have gotten, what do you call it, the certification?
Yeah, certification is their learner's permit.
Right.
Right now, we have about 4 students that have successfully gone through that component. It is very rigorous. These are high school students taking what students that are normally 21 years old are actually fulfilling. So I think that's very great, considering that they are high school students doing an adult simulated program.
So out of 5 years,
Yes, ma'am.
we graduated, certified 4 students for this
Yes, ma'am.
program. 4. Okay. And you say each course, I mean, it's what, 11th and 12th graders, right?
No, ma'am. They are now enrolling the students. They can come in as early as 10th grade. There are 4 Carnegie courses that they have to go through in order to be the board state-approved program that the state would allow us to do.
Okay, and 2 more questions. Is this $100,000 is what pot of money does it come out of?
Yes, right now, look, I think I'd have to ask, I'm not exactly sure.
Is that Perkins funds, or is that,
I don't think it's
what is
Perkins. I
it?
think
Is
it's
it
Perkins.
general funds?
Is it on there?
I don't have it listed.
She's going
Oh, I don't have it.
Mr. Carlin, maybe?
I don't
Or
have
Dr.
that
Witherspoon? No?
We will get that funding source if
Yeah, I don't have the
Mr.
source.
Collin is not aware at this point.
And my final question is, Dr. Witherspoon, and I had asked the chairwoman to put this item on the agenda, and it's not, but it is related to that. The board and the superintendent and a number of people have received a letter from the South Carolina Trucking Association, who's been a wonderful partner through this, just asking us to sit at the table to explore the expansion of this program. Of course, it's great to have it at Eau Claire, and it should certainly stay there, but expand it to Hayward Career and Technology Center. So on a piece of equipment like this, is it easily transportable maybe between locations?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
So, okay, so it could be eventually be shared where,
Yes, ma'am.
because I mean, it's a lot of money, so if we can share it, that would be great. Okay, thanks. That's all I have for now.
Okay, and I do want to respond. Yes, this board did receive a letter from the state's trucking association, And as I communicated with my colleague and communicated to my fellow colleagues verbally, when I discussed the letter and the expansion with the superintendent in our meeting, he asked that he had time to go back with his Cte folk and look at the logistical side of that in adding an additional program. So I want to make sure that my fellow colleagues, many of you are aware of this, but this was shared with the superintendent, and that is why it's not on the agenda, because there is no decision for us to make other than we received the letter. The superintendent is exploring that with his Cte and career folk, which he's supposed to do, and at the appropriate time, he will return to this board with a recommendation. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that. Are there any additional questions on the CDL training simulator? Okay, we'll now move on to the legal services contracts. Thank you guys so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to read the item in or just move forward? Would you like?
Ms. Outing, if you can read that item in as well.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Witherspoon, the administration is requesting approval by the Board of School Commissioners to approve the following list of attorneys. There are 10 firms on the list. The administration so recommends.
Okay, and again, this item is open now for discussion from any board member. Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. I appreciate the administration providing those kind of surveys or evaluations of at least the firms that we had previously done business. I've got a few questions about those surveys and also some additional questions. One question is, I know that we're paying at $180 an hour and we've increased that over the past year. Do we have requirements for how law firms bill us? In other words, the standard is usually every 6 minutes, 1/10 of an hour. Do we require law firms to do that, or are there any firms that bill at 1/4 of an hour?
There are some firms that bill at 1/4 of an hour.
Can we as an administration require, we can set requirements for billing, because that can make a big difference. If it's $180 an hour and someone makes one phone call for 3 minutes that day on a case, which happens on a case that drags out for a long time and there's not much going on, that's a big difference over time in how much that one phone call costs. I'm a little surprised to hear that any law firms bill at 1/4 an hour, but I would suggest that the administration consider requiring all the law firms to bill at the more standard rate of 1/10 of an hour increments, because it's more cost effective, and often that results in more detailed timesheets, at least in my experience. I know not all cases have outcomes, so a good bit of the legal work is consultation or working with international teachers, and those might have outcomes, but it's getting an H-1B visa or something like that. But to the extent that there are litigation outcomes, is there anyone in the district that's reviewing those outcomes and determining whether those were appropriate outcomes for that case? And I say that because I know that sometimes settlement is the best outcome and sometimes a trial might be. So I know that that's not a black or white answer.
I am a part of the lawsuits. The cases, most of our cases are handled through the South Carolina School Board Association and/or the trust. And when they mediate, I have been a part of the mediation. The majority of the cases have been settled not at the amount or near the amount in many instances where individuals requested that amount. And the attorneys have been very good in looking out for the best interest of the district.
Great, thank you, Ms. Williams. And do we do anything before we sign on with a firm to ensure that each member of that law firm is in good standing with the South Carolina Bar, just as an administrative item?
Well, as the attorney for the school district, I read through that information as it's posted, where individuals are no longer in good standing, and I have not seen one yet in terms of the firms that we're currently and have worked with in the past.
Okay. And who reviews, or does anyone review either the monthly time records or whatever cycle we have set up with the firm to kind of analyze for appropriateness and the right amount of detail in those records?
I do that.
So you review all the time billings that they submit?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do we do anything to ensure that one individual firm doesn't get a disproportionate amount of work from the district, such that if that work went away, that firm would cease to exist? And so that we don't overrepresent that firm's overall business? Do we ever look at that?
That is reviewed, and we do that
Okay.
Annually.
Great. And I noticed the surveys that you provided that were posted, most seem to be quite positive. I realize some of the, there's one question about safe working conditions, and generally that's not going to be applicable, but most of the surveys are pretty positive. There were one or two that seemed to be edging a little bit downward, and I'm wondering why they're still on. Is there someone else that could handle that area of the law that might look like the other law firms in terms of our assessment of their effectiveness?
If I'm thinking about the one that you may be referencing, that particular firm has provided a great deal of service to the district in the past, and I have not been aware that, to the extent that I don't think that we need to allow that firm to not be a part of the district. In the past, we've had two firms to address those issues, because one could go and then we would have none, especially with all of the teachers that we have coming in from foreign countries. And there are just not a lot of people that we can afford to pay willing to do it. They've done the service. And my recommendation would be that we certainly look at both of those firms to continue to do work for the district.
That was my question. It looked like there was a new firm, and
Right.
based on what I could find, does immigration stuff solely. So that would be the second firm. And
Correct.
I got to be honest, I don't know either one of those folks. So I'm not, when I say that one of those firms was judged a little bit lower than the other ones, that's not me saying it. I was just looking at, I think it was
Right.
Dr. Long's assessment. And I certainly understood and appreciated why some of the department chairs were surveying the law firms, because obviously he's going to be the one dealing with that firm. I think there was someone from transportation that had dealt with another firm, and I'm sure that they had the most one-on-one contact. I think it would, at least it would help me in the future if you also were part of that, so that there was some consistency in the evaluation. I don't want to take it away from those department chairs if they're the ones with the most contact, but also, since you're reviewing the timesheets and everything, I think it would be helpful, at least for me, for you to also sign off on those and be part of that. I don't have any more questions. Thank you, Chairman Harris.
Are there any additional questions? Commissioner King?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Williams, when you get, how often do you get bills from the law firms when they're working on a case?
Well, it will certainly depend upon what we're doing. For example, if we're doing bond work, whenever that comes up and that process is completed at that time, those attorneys will bill the district. So they're not involved with providing bills on an annual basis.
Sure, let's not talk about the bonds.
And then with the attorneys that do the work that we just got through discussing with foreign teachers, it depends on what's happening when the teachers are coming in, when we need certain things to be done. When they're actually working, they will bill us. And then other work that we have, it's based on a particular need at a given time if we need attorneys to use. And we do attempt to divide the work amongst the attorneys to do work for the district based on the areas in which they are capable of handling certain issues. And we do try to rotate those attorneys to provide services for the district. And that system has worked for us all the time that I've been here. And we've had good resources from all of the attorneys that I've worked for. We have not had any attorney that the school board approved to do work for the district. One time there was an attorney where we did not receive the services that we felt we should have received, but that was a result of going through the School Boards Association, and we did have a discussion, and that issue was dealt with. But we've not had that type of issue with any of the attorneys that have come to work for Richland 1 directly.
Would you say that the bills, the bills come, what, every 2 weeks or monthly? And
It depends on the level of work that's being done. If they work on a monthly basis at any given time, we should get that bill at the end of the month.
okay, so when they start doing the work, are there some parameters that they follow?
We always talk about what it is that is expected by the district.
Okay, but on a case-by-case basis, is there a letter of engagement?
It depends on what it is at a given time, if it's necessary to do that. We have lowered their fees. When I started, the fees were more than being paid to attorneys exceeded $1 million. And we have not been near that amount in several years since we started with the payments of $150. Just this past year, they increased to $180, and we've always been on top of, making sure that they're working and doing what we expect to be done with a particular matter.
Okay. I did notice that we have a lot less firms working. I want to finish with two things. One, is it understood that the firm Boykin Davis will fill in for you if you're not in the district, if you have to be absent for a while?
That is not an understanding just per se. If someone else needed to be a part of this administration, if I'm not in, based upon what's going on, it could be someone else. It could be someone else.
Okay, I'm just asking because recently, he was sitting, it happens that sometimes you can't come, but the one time Mr. Boykin was here, and so I was wondering if there was a special, clause that he would be the designated attorney sitting in for you. That's why
It is not a clause.
So it's not a clause. Okay, so it can be anybody else.
It could be, based upon the availability. Some of the firms, they do certain things depending upon their size.
Well, I'm just talking about regular board meetings when you cannot be here.
It's not written in stone that a particular person will have to be here, but if they've worked on something that may be coming up, that they have worked on, it would certainly be appropriate for that person to be in place.
Okay, all right. And then I'm going to make a statement that I do not take lightly, but I will vote yes for these firms, but I have to make you guys aware and the public aware that at the July 26th meeting or 27th meeting, I can't remember which it was, Mr. Boykin, Mr. Charles Boykin was in the building and stayed during the board meeting. And when I left the board meeting in the parking lot, he said something to me that was shockingly disrespectful. I think he was still upset about what happened during the Lower Richland community meeting, and he said something that was shockingly disrespectful. So I will not support this kind of behavior and treatment by a vendor that makes a lot of money out of this district. But for the rest of the firms, I will definitely vote affirmatively. Thank you.
Any additional questions? And Attorney Williams, I did want to pinpoint, thank you so very much to my colleagues and those that are listening. You're noted around this state for making sure that we have one of the lowest, what you want to call worked out hourly rates when it comes to our district. Again, being very accountable with our tax dollars to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. So I really wanted to say to you, I appreciate that. This board appreciates that. As I stated, you were at the conference, the state conference, and that was pinpointed by one of our attorneys here in the state of South Carolina, that is something that you do and have been doing for a number of years. So I wanted to commend you publicly on making sure that we get good lawyers and attorneys to handle matters for this district, but at a reasonable rate. So I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments from anyone, we will now call for the vote. Thank you so much, Ms. Outing. Let the record reflect all of the items as previously mentioned under the Office of Operations have been approved, and the vote was unanimous. We'll now move on to the Office of Academics to hear our 2021-22 accountability presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As staff, we do have some folks pitch hitting this evening, and we're getting the presentation queued up.
Thank you. All right, good evening. Chairwoman Harris.
Good evening.
Board of School Commissioners, and Dr. Witherspoon. I am going to be presenting the 21-22 data report on behalf of the Office of AARE and Teaching and Learning. I'll be doing part 1, and then Ms. Jennings will be coming up to do part 2. Getting acclimated to my where I'm at right now, too. Alrighty, so tonight we'll be sharing on updates on some district test scores as well as some ratings. I do want to mention that a few things are embargoed or not released yet, so I want to mention that first. So tonight we won't be able to give the 22 updates on grad rate. Dropout rate also is not released yet, and state report cards, actually we got a notification about 6:15. It's going to be released Monday, not this week. And then also SAT is still embargoed. So those things are still embargoed, so we cannot talk about those tonight. However, we do have lots of other test scores that we can update you on, including SC Ready, SC Pass, end of course, senior SAT, AP, dual enrollment, IB. So lots of things that I'll be sharing in tonight's presentation. All right, so as far as elementary and middle grades 3 to 8, we're going to be providing information on SC Ready and ELA and math. And then SC Pass, science, just as you probably already know, grades 4 and 6 are given the science test, so I'll be giving you updates on that as well. At the high school level, you'll be getting updates on EOCEP, that is the end of course examination program. For for Career Ready, you'll be getting updates on WIN as well as work keys. So, in the fall, WIN was given, and in the spring, work keys was given. So we'll be giving you updates on SC Ready, or Career Ready, WIN, and work keys. And then senior SAT data will be given, as well as AP and IB. All right, in terms of SC Ready, SC Pass, number of students tested, want to highlight that from 2021 to 2022 in SC Ready ELA, there was an additional 2,861 kids that were tested. And in mathematics, there was an additional 2,797 kids tested. So we're looking at between 2021 and 2022, spring of those 2 years. And then you can also see that for the district in 4th grade, for the science tests, there was an additional 385 kids tested in 4th grade, and an additional 389 kids tested in 6th grade. And comparing that to the state, you can see that over 42,000 more kids were tested between 21 and 22 in ELA, and a little under 42,000 kids in mathematics. And then, not reading these numbers to the T, but you can see a little over 12,000 more kids were tested in science between 21 and 22. So just giving you a point of reference in some of the data that we're about to show in terms of the performance data. All right, so that leads us into the performance data for SC Ready ELA, in looking at how students performed. Just to give you an overview, students are, their performance levels can be does not meet, approaches, meets or exceeds. And for SC Ready ELA, we had 63.8% of our kids scoring approaches, meets, or exceeds. Compared to statewide, we had 63.9% of the kids at approaches, meets, or exceeds. Looking at SC Ready Mathematics, you can see that we had 53.1% of our kids scoring at approaches, meets, or exceeds, compared to the state of 67.4. Moving on to look at SC Pass. By level, the same performance levels, you can see that the percent of students scoring approaches, meets, or exceeds for the district was 52.5, compared to statewide, 66.2. All right, so that was the achievement side of SC Ready. Now we're just going to look at some information about student growth in terms of SC Ready. So our district matched or surpassed the state's growth average of 3.0 in the following subgroups for both ELA and math. So this is 10 of the 11 subgroups. So just to highlight, like English learners, you can see that their percentage was 3.323 compared to non-English learners of 3.0898. So you can see, where these subgroups performed in the state's average growth was 3.0. So all of these groups surpassed or matched the state's average growth. All right, now I'm going to transition to give you some updates on end of course. All right, so here are the 4 subject areas that are tested at the middle and high school levels, depending on which subject we're talking about. So you can see for Algebra 1, we had 15.9% of our students passed Algebra 1. In Biology, we had 36.5%. In English 2, we had 75%. And in the U.S. History and the Constitution, 47.7%. So I kind of read down the left column, and out to the right, you can see how that compares to the state passage rate. All right, in terms of career ready, looking at WIN and work keys. As I mentioned earlier, in the fall, WIN was given. So that's why we're giving the information out kind of in 3 slides. So seeing just the fall 2021 WIN numbers, you can see that 795 students tested. And of those students, 73.5 received a certificate. Just highlighting a few of the numbers, so I won't read every number on the slide to you. All right, for work keys, in spring of 2022, we had 1,048 students who tested, and of that group, 68.7% of those students received a certificate. Now we're going to look at the combined numbers. So looking at those numbers combined, we had a total of 2,443 students who tested, and 70.2% of those students received a certificate. And then I also want to highlight of the combined group, 42.2% of those students got what is called a career ready certificate, which means they got silver level, gold level, or platinum level. So that's what the career ready row means. And then you can see individually the percent that got no certificate, bronze, silver, and platinum as well on the slide. All right, moving on to graduation rate. As I mentioned earlier, that's still embargoed. However, I do want to highlight the 2021, since that's the most recent number that we do have. And so our district graduation rate from 2021 was 85.8 compared to the state's of 83.3. This slide's already been a little augmented. Well, we haven't tweaked it, but we did get like I said, an update right before the meeting tonight that these numbers, the report card numbers will get updated Monday as opposed to the 13th that's on this slide. All right, dropout rate. It's also a number that we're still waiting on from the State Department, so it's not available. However, the 2021 numbers, you can see that the district dropout rate was 1.5 compared to the state's dropout rate of 2.4. All right, senior SAT, as I mentioned on the first couple slides, ACT is not released yet. I think it'll be released maybe as early as tomorrow. However, we are presenting data on senior SAT because we have that to be able to be provided. All right, so the number of students tested, just kind of looking at the 2022 numbers, even though on each of the slides you do have some longitudinal data provided also. So you can see in 2022, we had 556 students who tested, and the percent associated with that is 39.1, compared to the state, 48.7. Of that group of students who tested, you can see that the average score was 1,024, and you can see how that compares to averages the 4 years prior. All right, piggybacking on that last slide of that 1,024, you can see how that average score is broken out based upon evidence-based reading and writing and math at the district level. And then you can also see how our average of 1,024 compares to the state, which was 1,023, compared to nationally 1,028. So just kind of, and then also in parentheses, because there's lots of numbers on the slide, you can see how the changes were from 2021 to 2022 in reference to each of those cells on the chart as well. All right, AP, Advanced Placement, is the next topic. Number of AP exams taken, you can see again, longitudinal data, but I'm going to highlight 2022. You can see that the number of AP exams taken was 1,348. Number of students taking one or more AP exam, you can see of the, I already forgot the number, 1,348 students who took AP exams, or AP exams taken, excuse me. We had 845 students who took one or more AP exam. And then of those students, 57.9% of the students passed their AP exams. And you can see how that compares to the prior years. And then this slide gives you a comparison to the state. So our 57.9% compared to the statewide 63.3. And then also on the slide, you can see the changes from 2021 to 2022. Both had, 5.9, 5.5% increase. And this is looking at percent passing AP exams, as I mentioned, compared to the state. All right, the AP Capstone Diplomas, which basically, for a student to receive an AP Capstone Diploma, students must earn scores of 3 or higher, and it gives the credentials, so in AP Seminar, AP Research, and 4 additional AP exams. And you can see that we had 34 diplomas in 2022, and you can see how that compares to the 3 years prior. All right, moving on to dual enrollment. For dual enrollment, we had 289 students in 21-22 who were enrolled in dual enrollment classes. This consisted of 696 classes in total, and 75% of those classes taken, so 75% of those dual enrollment classes were taken, were passed with a C or higher. And you can see how that compares to the 3 years prior. All right, IB, I think is our last topic in part 1. All right, number of students taking IB exams. You can see we had 90 students in 2022. You can see how that compares to the 4 prior years. Number of IP exams taken, 504. Number of exams passed, 76.6%. And number of IB diplomas awarded for 2022, 50%. All right, so that's part 1, and I'm going to transition part 2 to Ms. Jennings.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The next several slides, I'm going to go over some of the strategies that are being implemented in the district. And these strategies are not necessarily just strategies to address the data that you've just seen, but these are overall strategies that we implement in this district as a part of continuous improvement. And we, of course, start with strategies that are contained in our district strategic plan, as well as the academic recovery plan. The academic recovery plan is fairly new because it is in response to COVID. And as a state, every district was required to come up with an academic recovery plan and get that plan submitted to the state for approval. And our plan was approved as submitted. And of course, the ESSER 3 plan also in response to COVID was approved as well. And of course, that's where we have many of our funding opportunities to come from. So a lot of our strategies are already embedded into these important pieces of improvement strategies within the district. Then your next slide says strategies to support growth in reading and mathematics, but actually they are strategies to support growth across the board in our district. Our elementary and middle schools and high schools are actually organized into cohorts. At the elementary level, we have 3 cohort groups. At the secondary level, we have 2 cluster cohort groups. And the reason these schools are organized into these cohorts is for support. We want to make sure that we provided differentiated support based on specific data points. They were put into the groups based on several data points. And from that, we provide support and resources based on those data points. And one major piece of that is the professional development opportunity that we provide for our schools. And we provide it across the board. As a matter of fact, we are also involved in professional learning as we go through this process of improving as a district. And if you look at that second bullet, it says your school leaders, but everyone at the school level, we of course provide support to and professional learning, and everyone really at the district level as well. So our school leaders, our CRTs, our EPIs, the leadership team members there, our interventionists, our teachers, and all instructional support staff at the district level as well are provided opportunities to learn and to grow and to develop strategies to better support our students. And the main focus for our professional development now, of course, is what is happening to our students, how can we better support our students in the classrooms, and especially, if you notice there, we're saying our core instructional strategies for core support in the classroom. We also have interventions that we provide professional learning opportunities for our staff to understand what interventions are and how to use those interventions to support students who have deficiencies. But we realize that our intense focus on core instruction will also minimize the need for us to have interventions. So a lot of our support, of course, is provided with core instruction. And of course, we provide our teachers who are closest to our students in the classroom with resources and supports to help them to plan and to deliver effective lessons for our students. We provide across the board instructional frameworks. We provide YAGs, with years at a glance, when it comes down to our standards, pacing guides, units, and we have common formative assessments that are used to help make informed decisions about what is happening in the classroom and mastery of our standards. Other strategies, the other resources, many times we come to this board and request you approving resources for us, and those resources are some of the main resources that we provide to our teachers to support instruction within the classrooms. If you know, textbooks are just one resource that is used. So we have many resources that we provide for our students because our students are on different levels and there are different needs that are out there, so that we are trying to support and meet our students where they are. And of course, we have after-school programs across the board, elementary, middle, and at the high school level, athletic tutorial programs to support our students and extend the learning that happens during the day and extend it in the afternoons. This particular strategy to support success in grade 9 is one that we built specifically into our academic recovery plan. We realize, and this is not anything new for anyone, but we know that our 9th graders have to be successful in the 9th grade if we expect them to graduate on time, if we expect them to graduate within 4 years. So we have to make sure that they are successful. So these are some strategies that we are very specific about in supporting our 9th graders to ensure that they are successful. And one, we look at their data. Coming in from the 8th grade, we analyze the data of our incoming 9th graders. We also monitor their classwork grades. We monitor their attendance, and I'll speak a little bit more about the attendance in a few minutes, and also their formative assessment results, because we do administer formative assessments to see how our students are progressing. And of course, we have data conferences with our students and their parents. Our students have to take responsibility also and take ownership of their learning. So we are having conferences with students, our school leadership team members and their teachers work directly with students, let them know where they are and how they can move forward. So that is very important as well, and having those same types of conversations with their parents. We have content recovery, extended day opportunities, tutoring, and Saturday academies for our students as well. And of course, we provide interventions. And we provide it not just based on the STAR data, but we provide interventions based on other data points that we gather and compile on our students. And of course, at the school level, they take them through the MTSS process of monitoring them and to make sure that they are continuing to grow and progress as expected. There's also lots of conversation about the root causes of some of the lack of success. When a student is experiencing their deficiencies, we like to work with them. The schools actually work very hard in trying to address some of those needs to find out exactly what is the root cause of this lack of success. And to do that, that helps us to analyze. We have to analyze their data. We have to know what is actually happening with the student. And then if there are some barriers that are in place, we have to work to remove those barriers to ensure that our students are going to be successful. And over the last couple of years, we started implementing, when it says other summer academic programs for rising ninth graders, we specifically put in place a program to actually invite our rising ninth graders to the high schools during the summer to take sessions, to take classes in ELA and mathematics specifically, whereby they will have more of a head start. So this is something that we've been doing also to help our incoming ninth graders, as well as at the middle school level, other grade levels, rising 5th, 6th, 7th, and so forth. And of course, we have other programs that are in place during the summer, such as our Einstein programs that really help prepare students and address some of their needs and also accelerate some of their learning so they'll be better prepared for the next school year. Attendance. This is something based on our analysis of our data. We realized that we really needed to put something in place for the attendance of all of our students, but especially our ninth graders. As I mentioned earlier, if they are not successful in the ninth grade, then we know that we are going to have some major challenges ensuring that they graduate, and they do too. But they have to come to school. They have to be there. So all of our schools have an attendance committee. And with that attendance committee, they actually meet with, for our incoming ninth graders, they actually meet with the 8th grade staff to find out from their feeder schools, to find out whether there were some students that need that special attention from day one, once they come in. So they actually meet with the middle school staff to discuss those rising ninth graders, to talk about their attendance, to talk about any other academic issues that may be there so that they can better prepare for those ninth graders coming in addition to analyzing their test results. They meet with the students who have the chronic absentees. They meet with them, they meet with their parents. They create contracts for parents and students to sign about attendance, to ensure that they are in school on a daily basis when they are coming into high school. Because at the high school level, it counts for every class they miss. So it is very important that they are there on a daily basis for every class. And also we use our parent and family engagement specialists to reach out to those parents whose children are not coming to school as well. And then, of course, suspensions, that's another way to help ensure that our students are there. We are constantly looking at ways to ensure that our students are not suspended out of school so that they can be in school where they need to be. Some strategies, and I'm sorry, I'm behind with my clicker. Strategies to support college and career readiness. Well, these are strategies across the board because there are 5 ways that students are considered college and career ready. And several of those you've already heard some of the data on tonight. But we embed some of the SAT and the ACT strategies within the core instruction within the classrooms. And a lot of our pacing guides and our curriculum documents will have those strategies embedded, and some of those skills and content embedded within those guides that are provided to our teachers. And of course, we provide additional opportunities for our dual enrollment courses, and this includes singletons. We have our articulation agreements with higher ed institutions, but we also build into some of those singletons because there may be a child who wants to take a course that is not offered at the school or offered that the school is offering as far as dual enrollment is concerned, but just one of those interests that you cannot accommodate because you may only have 1 or 2 students who are interested in taking that particular course. And if that is the case, within our agreements, we can have students to take those courses. So that is built into our articulation agreements as well. with approval, of course, from the principal. And our dual enrollment opportunities are increasing, and the number of students participating are increasing. And that is a major goal of the district as well. Also, of course, the Cte Completed Status, which of course is another way that students are identified as college or career ready, and that is they have Cte Completer plus credential. And we are always monitoring those pathways. We have counselors and others from the CTE team that are looking at transcripts, making sure that students are taking the appropriate courses to lead to CTE completers. Sometimes students select courses based on interest, but also sometimes those courses can get out of order, so to speak, unless someone is watching and pulling them back in and say, hey, you need to take this course, and in order to become a CTE completer. So we are constantly working with our students to do that. And of course, working with schools to ensure that more and more of our students are enrolled in AP and IB courses. All of this said, we have to monitor. The saying goes, you have to make sure that as a part of the improvement cycle, monitoring is a major piece of that. And one thing that we do that we've started the last couple of years that are extremely beneficial is also conducting deep data dives. And I'm sure you all may have heard information about those. When after each interim assessment, and our interim is STAR, we have a deep data dive. And during those deep data dive discussions, it is really about the data, where your students stand. Each school, this is conducted with each school's leadership team. And we talk about the data, where your students are. We set goals for performance for those students, as well as what are some of the things that you need? What are some barriers that need to be removed? How do we help you and support you at the district level? Also looking at their subgroup data, and you saw a couple of slides back where you have information that Ms. Allen went through about the some subgroup data, and I'll give you a little bit more information about that. But with the subgroup data, because sometimes we realize that there are subgroups within buildings that need additional support, that need something extra. And we have to be prepared to do that. If we are data-driven, then when we look at subgroup data, then we must be prepared to address that data. Also, we conduct quarterly grad meetings that focus on the graduation rate, where schools actually come forward and identify student by student as to what the needs are, where that student stands. Is that student in jeopardy of not graduating on time? And what can be done to ensure that that student does graduate? And so these meetings are very informative. They are very collaborative on the part of principals sharing with each other strategies that they are using within their buildings in order to learn from each other and to grow from each other. So, of course, these meetings are done quarterly. And then, of course, we have quarterly analysis of our usage of intervention resources. Those resources that we bring to the board for approval, and they are being implemented within the schools, we monitor the usage of those resources as well. We have quarterly meetings where we actually come together and look at the usage reports. We come up with strategies to ensure that it's being used with fidelity. And we also, those are meetings when we decide there may be some resources that we have been using that we may not want to use any longer. Or there are resources that we may need to make some adjustments in to make, as far as the implementation is concerned. So we have those meetings on a quarterly basis. We have one coming up soon in November, I believe. And of course, we do ongoing progress monitoring. With walkthroughs and learning walks. And from those walkthroughs and learning walks, A lot of data really is compiled to be used to support schools in based on what is being seen, using that data to actually shape the professional learning opportunities for the schools. When we go through and we see what is happening in the classrooms, and that gives us more information to better prepare to meet the needs of the schools as far as professional learning opportunities. It also gives us information back on our curriculum, even though our teachers have opportunities to always provide input and feedback on the curriculum that they are using or that they have been provided. We also use the walkthroughs, the learning walks, to help us make some decisions there as well. And of course, schools are expected to do instructional rounds within their buildings. Leadership team members have the expectation to actually do a certain number of learning walks within their building, and they are also free to go into other buildings as well, do some peer learning walks with other schools. And of course, we analyze all of our formative assessment data that we receive. We get this data, we review it, we come up with plans, action plans of how, based on the data, what we need to do prior to any major assessment that's coming up. So it is ongoing monitoring that is a part of everything that we do within the district. There are some other additional strategies to impact success with our students, and I'm not going to go through that list, but we, of course, the expansion of the Birth to 4 initiative, the action-based learning opportunities that we have in the district. We're expanding the work-based learning experiences for our students. Those numbers, the number of students participating in work-based learning opportunities are increasing yearly. And of course, we have a greater focus on the skills, the content. Many of our new standards that you'll probably get more information about soon, many of our new standards are focusing more on the skills instead of the content. And so that gives us an opportunity to work more with teachers because you do have teachers who love that content and they're used to it because of the way the older standards were set up. But now the new standards that are coming in are more focused on skills, so not just the content. So we have that training and support that we'll be providing as well. And of course, we have virtual school programs for elementary and secondary students in the district. And of course, expansion of the parent and family engagement program. We are expanding that program with more opportunities for parents. Our parent and family engagement specialists do an outstanding job of reaching out to parents. And now we are really expanding that to have more hands-on sessions for our parents so that they can come in and be a partner with the teachers as we expect them to be. There are some other indicators of growth, and then that next slide talks about a reflection from slide 9 where you had the subgroup information. And this is just some information you can read if you like on your own about how the district schools, the number and the percentage of district schools that for both ELA and mathematics that scored at or above the state average of that 3.0. And out of our 28 elementary schools, we had 18 of our elementary schools to score at or above, and 5 of our 9 middle schools to score at or above. And then for just ELA alone, we had 14 of our 28 elementary schools and 3 of our 9 middle schools. And of course, for math, we had 19 of the 28 elementary schools and 7 of the 9 middle schools. So we are a growing district. And some other indicators of growth within our district, we're training all of our K-3 teachers and interventionists in structured literacy instruction. At some of the work sessions we've had with your retreat, the board retreats that you've had, Dr. Hagwood and her team has shown you some of that information, what that looks like as far as the training, the literacy training is concerned. We are definitely continuing with disciplinary literacy at the secondary level within all of our classrooms. Our formative assessment results, when we look at those results, we can see movement there. And also, we see continuous improvement with our students, the number of students qualifying for specific recognitions, such as our CTE completers, other scholars, and also more and more of our students participating in internships and apprenticeships within the district. At this time, I'll ask Ms. Allen and Dr. Hagwood if they would join me, and if you all have any questions, that we will attempt to answer any questions you may have.
First of all, to all of you, thank you for the information that you have provided for us tonight. It is a lot, but we appreciate hearing the data, the state of where we are, as well as knowing what our next steps are as a district. We'll open the floor at this time for our colleagues to ask any questions that they may have. We'll begin with Commissioner Lomanak.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris, and thank you all for putting together a ton of data. I've got some questions, probably maybe overly focused on ELA, because that is such a predictor of, especially elementary school, that third grade milestone is such a predictor of middle school and high school success. And you even see it when you're looking at the middle school, the number of middle schools that met or exceeded the state growth average is 14 out of 28. So that means 14 middle schools did not meet that state growth average. But then I guess elementary schools was 14 out of 28, and then it goes down in middle school to just 3 out of 9. And what I am concerned about is I see so many middle and high school principals working so hard in the remediation efforts, but it's really hard when students get to middle school and they are 2 or 3 years behind in literacy. So I really did focus on the SE Ready ELA scores. And one of the things that I noticed is since 2016, we're at about the same place. We have 6% more that did not meet in 2022 than 2016. But when you look at meets and exceeds and combine those together, we're close to the same place, maybe a little bit less than some years, but not terribly off. And then when you look at our comparison to the state average, we're almost 10 percentage points off now, which is more than we've been in a little while in the ELA, just the SE Ready ELA. And then when you look at the gap between our black students and white students, since 2016, I think we've made either 1% improvement or 1% loss in third grade or fifth grade. So we're not making any strides in one of those metrics that I know people are super focused on. And I'm trying to figure out what we need to do differently. And I know it's hard. And I know that early childhood center, I mean, those 300 kids that go to that school will be set up, but they're going to be way more kids than that we're not going to be able to provide that early childhood center for the next several years. And, you know, the research about that third grade literacy can be daunting about both the academic success and the emotional fulfillment in middle school when kids are meeting that goal in third and sometimes in fourth grade, but at least by middle school. So, you know, I hear us talk about root causes, chronic absenteeism, and the minute y'all say that, I think we've got to have more social workers. That's literally what they're trained to do. And then when we talk about instruction at that retreat, I've written down a bunch of quotes, but so many administration folks said our teachers are and staff at our schools are the best commodity we have to ensuring academic success. So what are we going to do to try to decrease that gap between our black students and our white students, and also decrease the gap between our average and the state average?
It's not separated, so.
To be perfectly honest, we do agree that we constantly are looking at how we can increase the number of students that are performing at or above. We definitely, that is something that we do. There are lots of other ways that we are considering some things, and that is we know that we have to accelerate our students. When they come to us behind, and I know at the elementary level, as Dr. Hagwood mentioned, many of those students, when they come into first grade, when they come into kindergarten and first grade, they're already way behind because some of them do not go into formal programs. So it is a matter of acceleration. We have to also meet the students where they are, but then we have to accelerate them even faster. So it is a constant, it is something that we constantly work on, and we constantly try to ensure that our teachers are trained in how to actually work with students that are so far behind. Because sometimes when you have them within a group, sometimes you sort of teach to the middle, so to speak, and you've heard that before. So we are working with our teachers to give them the appropriate training to know how to sort of individualize the instruction, because you have students that are at varying levels. And so that is one thing, making sure that our teachers are constantly trained. And even though some of this training is ongoing, and you hear it and you say each year you're doing some of the same thing, but we have new teachers that come on board. We have teachers that leave, new teachers that come on board. We have that we have to continuously, sometimes we have to go back and repeat, but we have to continuously work on how we accelerate the learning for our students. And teacher training is going to be a major piece of that. And we think that we are beginning to make even more strides in that now, especially at the elementary level where the K-3 literacy focus has been over these last couple of years, with the training that all of their teachers are getting the same type of training at that level.
Well, and I'm always in favor of training, but I do sometimes worry that, and you really nailed it, when you've got kids who really span a range, second grade classroom that's got kids at a pre-K literacy level and a third grade level. I know that teachers are supposed to differentiate. If anybody graded me on differentiation when I was a teacher, I would have failed, because it's really hard. And I was teaching high school. That's way easier than teaching second grade and trying to differentiate and meet those kids who are literally at the kindergarten literacy level. And to me, that screams we need more instructional assistants, and we've really got to make sure, maybe K through 3 has an assistant in every classroom, which I know is a big ask, but also at our schools that are not meeting the state growth, at least focus on those and make sure those class sizes are smaller, because 12 kids doesn't sound like a lot. But if they span all of those ranges, that's a really big ask of just one adult in that room.
And if I could add, Commissioner Womack, we have spent a great deal of time focused on...
Can you speak in the mic?
I'm
please?
sorry.
There you go.
I apologize, I'm not close enough. We've spent a great deal of time focused on differentiation and small group instruction, which is so critical, and that's a part of core instruction as well. But a few other things that we're focused on is making sure that our K through 3 teachers truly understand how to teach reading. Right? There's an assumption that if you graduate from an education program that you understand how to teach children how to read, and our teachers will tell you many of them don't feel comfortable in that area, so that's why we've come to you for approval for Orton Gillingham, and the state is implementing letters training and that sort of thing. So that structured literacy where teachers get to they participate in PD so they can understand the sequence children learn in, the strategies you need to use, and the science behind how to teach reading is so critical. And I can tell you I haven't had one complaint about OG training, and it is some of the most intensive training we've provided. It's 5 days, it's all day, but I get compliment after compliment from teachers saying this is exactly what I needed. And so I think that's going to be critical, right? And so everything that we're doing in early childhood, but I also think that our focus on teacher clarity, we're helping teachers and students and parents understand what they need to know and what, how to demonstrate that learning is also critical, because we cannot, and you all have seen how complex our standards are, and teachers not only need to know what the standard says, but what is the progression within the standard. All the little pieces, all the skills, all the language that kids need to know and be able to understand, and what they need to demonstrate. And so we are spending a great deal of time with that. And we know that we need to provide teachers time to process that and time to actually plan so that they can align the assignments, the assessment, the instruction. And so that's a critical piece to that also. And if you would let me mention, and we know there was a bit of a dip, but we were also looking at several of the data points, and we noticed that in elementary school, for instance, 25 out of the 28 schools increased in ELA, right? So we may not be where we were pre-COVID levels. We're still in that recovery, and we're digging out of that hole, and people are working and focused on doing that. And then on the other end of it, in terms of does not meet, 26 out of the 28 elementary schools reduced the number of does not meet. And that's what we want to see. We want to see one end going up and the other end going down, and that's what we've seen. So we have quite a few data points to show that we're moving in the right direction. We're not where we are. We won't pretend that that's so, but we definitely think we have some good things going and we're moving in the right direction.
Well, and listen, the reason I went back to 2016 is because I wanted to kind of skip over the COVID years, and I know that there are dips. I mean, you can see them when you do a line chart, and across all demographics, there are huge dips, and I totally understand that. And I think I totally agree with you. OG training, I've never heard a complaint about it, and I think it's super useful. My only pushback a little bit is I think all of that training is important, but in a classroom during small group instruction, if there's only one teacher in the room and you've got some really difficult behavior issues, that can really be tough for that small group instruction to be effective, or any instruction to be effective when you've got that kind of pretty significant behavior issues. And I see it every day. I mean, I struggle with it every day, and I'm learning more about literacy achievement in third grade this year than I ever thought I'd learn. So I know it's hard, but sometimes I do think that what our teachers need is more support in the classroom, and what our families need are more social workers. So I pushed back months ago when we said our goal was to have a social worker at every school, and I know we can't go hire 100 social workers next week, but I hope that ultimately we'll rethink that goal, because some of our schools need way more than one social worker if we're truly gonna get at those root causes, and if we're gonna tackle that chronic absenteeism. That is exactly what social workers do, but it takes such intensive work, and I think chronic absenteeism is gonna be weighted on the report cards either at some point soon, so it's gonna be something that we get dinged for anyway. So I just want to throw that out there in terms of the elementary scores, and I'll stop and yield. Chairman Harrison, thank you all, all three of y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Lombard. Any other questions, Commissioner Clyburn?
Yes, thank you all so much for all of that information. That was a lot of data. But so, Commissioner Lombard brought up a couple of points, and I wanted to point out something that I noticed. The African American level seemed to be very in line with the socioeconomic status, or the lower income number. Can you speak a little bit about how that sometimes can correlate and show up in our data to be somewhat of an effect or a result?
Let me put it back to the slide I think that you're referring to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but way at the beginning.
It's at the beginning, right?
Yeah, it's
There it
towards
is.
the beginning.
This one
Yeah.
right here?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, so you were looking at the socio disadvantage of 3.355?
Yes.
And,
Economic disadvantage,
yeah, economic disadvantage, and then the black 3 point, no, we haven't done any like cross comparisons of those groups, but I would say that if we were to provide that on the slide as well, then we would find that there is a correlation between the African American students in our schools and and economically disadvantaged. But we can definitely provide an additional slide to kind of show how those cross, as well, if you would like.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's important to, point that out, and maybe we can move towards some solution-driven type of steps to help curve that. So,
right.
Thank you.
And
Dr. Witherspoon.
thank you, Madam Chair. And Commissioner Clyburn, to your point, there have been some national analysis of data points relative to or related to COVID and those types of things. I know we have some pre-COVID data and information and post-COVID. But there has been information, again, from a national level that looked at depending on how COVID was dealt with, there has been some disproportionate effect, if you will. So that is a piece. Again, there's some national discussion about that, and there is, as Ms. Allen said, we've had some discussion internally about that, but we have not asked them to go and run any match pair analysis and those types of things. But that is something. Again, we do analyze our data and see, and again, what do we need to do and to move forward. And just to echo certainly all the points that have been made, we did see again, and it's not included in this slide deck, but a decrease in the number of students that fall in that does not meet category, which if you squeeze the balloon, if you will, where we decrease there were some increases in some of those others. But as was stated, and we certainly all agree with, we're not where we want to be. But again, looking at even some of those growth pieces and all, that is taken into account as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you for all the data information. Is definitely well needed. Just a couple of quick questions. Do we offer any testing for pre-K or for the 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds?
Yes, ma'am, we do. For pre-K, we use MyIGDs, which is, and that is something that we do because it's required by the state. We select out of a number of assessments, but we have to assess them at least at the beginning of the year and the end of the year, but we actually do it 3 times a year, I believe. And then kindergarten, we use KRA, which is required by the state, and that lets us know if our students have arrived to school ready to learn. And then we also, of course, as Ms. Jennings mentioned, we use Renaissance Star, and we start administering that in kindergarten.
And then my follow-up question would be, do we offer like advanced class, or do we have an opportunity to kind of split them up for the ones that kind of advance and the one that's sort of behind? Like, do we offer any advanced classes for the pre-K and kindergarten? The reason why I'm asking this class, because maybe just teaching right in the middle is holding one group back while we catching the other group up.
Sure, and I think Ms. Jennings was explaining what may be going on in some places. That's not our practice or our intended practice. We encourage teachers, or we expect that they will practice differentiation. So that we don't offer separate classes for that age group because we don't find it to be developmentally appropriate. However, our teachers, some of the work that we've been doing with our teachers around how to identify students that are gifted early on on and the strategies you use to make sure you're stretching them and challenging them, even within those classes. We've been doing a lot of that over the last couple of years, and that, as you see, along with some of the work we've done with Einstein, we've seen some increases in our numbers when it comes to GT students by the time they get to third grade.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any additional questions? Commissioner King?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first questions are directed at Dr. Witherspoon. Dr. Witherspoon, this is a really important, I mean, this is the meat right here. In the past, we've had this presentation at committee meeting, and this time we didn't, and we got this presentation yesterday. So what happened? What happened to committee meeting information?
Actually, that was about 4, maybe 5 years ago, when that was done in committee to this, and there were some presentations that are done at the board meeting. And I know, as I shared with you all, this was, and actually this presentation, and Ms. Allen spoke to some of those changes and updates, I think wasn't complete until yesterday. So when that was completed, it was sent out. But that was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, that was a good practice because that's a lot of information, and we need to digest this. And, you know, my fear is that, you know, we're going to get a lot of public feedback. We got to sleep on it, just reflect on it. And my concern is it's just going to be one presentation and it'll be done. The other thing I'm concerned about is the two people that usually present, Ms. Miner and Dr. Broussard, are not here. Why is that?
They were not able to be at the meeting this evening.
And was it a decision to not postpone it until, especially since not everything is completed, until the last meeting in October?
Well, in terms of, and again, what was indicated this evening, there have been some changes in some of those embargo dates and the like, and this was the date that we had. So I think there were maybe two pieces that we're still, that are still embargoed, and we will bring those back.
All right, so my suggestion is to keep it at committee meeting, because that's a lot of information, and going through committees is just really a good practice. Gives us enough time to digest everything so that when we come to the board meeting, and then we used to have two presentations, now it's just lumped in one. That's just a bunch of data dump, and it's just very, very overwhelming.
Let me add, Ms. King, while you're looking for your next question. What also happens, and in either by cluster of schools, this is broken down. Again, we give an aggregate at this level, but the work again is done. The schools do presentations. I know. I think later on this week, a cluster is doing a presentation. That I will be at, and that's for parents, community, and so forth. So there is follow-up. We also follow up. Again, there are pieces, as was indicated this evening, there are pieces that are followed up on retreats and other work sessions in regard to how curriculum and how those instructional processes manifest itself in buildings. So all of those things that we do, again, are based upon these data, are based upon formative assessments, that feedback cycle, all of those things. So there is continued work as we go through any given year. But again, this is shared, again, at school, some of the formative STAR data and that type of thing. For example, parents get those reports. And also, there is this. I don't want anybody to feel like this is the only time that information is shared, and there is work being done in that regard.
So the strategic plan states that by 2024, essentially, especially third graders will meet the 80% meet or exceed marks. Based on a quick calculation, in ELA right now, we are 64.4% of our students not meeting the standards. Almost 65%. In math, it's almost 74% of our students are not meeting the standards. And in science, it's 66%. I mean, I can only express concern. And of course, I know everybody's working hard, but we've got to find different ways to do things because that's not moving the needle. And those are our kiddos. But this is a hard, cold fact. One of the things I wanted to ask you is there also an effort at the school level? We were talking about, the fact that in any given classroom, there is such a wide range of levels by student. Is there an effort at the school level to try to balance I will call it the student profiles, academic profiles, so that especially for new teachers who are just drinking out of a fire hose and have, to have the training and the classroom management and, finishing certifications or whatever, and have 20 kiddos or sometimes 25 kiddos in their classrooms at various levels. Is there at the school level an effort to try to balance the classrooms and analyzing each teacher's skills, not only content, but class management, et cetera, et cetera?
I think schools really try hard to do that. They look at their individual teachers. They place them in classes according to, for some of the teachers, where they know they will be most needed, of course, and also based on their level. If they're just coming in, they're a new teacher, they have conversations with their teachers up front beforehand as they prepare their rosters for their students. But I think most principals in all of the schools actually try to meet teachers where they are as well and place them accordingly. But for those that, if they are having to place them somewhere in a class, like you say, a new teacher, they try to make sure that they provide them the, the utmost support that they can provide for them based on where they are in their career as well. And a lot of that happens, when we look at after test administration, and we see that individual support is also provided to individual teachers as well. But of course, to our new teachers coming in, there's a whole nother, there are many other opportunities for those students, for those teachers to get support because they are new to the district or new to the, to the teaching profession. But but I think principals do, I think they do work with their teachers to actually, and they look at that and they look at the range of students. But, we have to make sure that all of our students receive the best teacher they possibly can receive in that classroom.
Well, that of course, that's a wish, but we all know that with teacher shortage, that's just a real challenge. I mean, that's just a reality of things. And I know that for new teachers, one of the best training tools per se is a veteran or a seasoned teacher. Yet we've lost a lot of teachers to retirement or for other reasons, and so that's it becomes pretty skinny in terms of institutional knowledge and classroom knowledge, et cetera. So that's a concern. So one of the things that I would certainly like to throw out there, which I'm sure it's already in your mind, but for future conversation at the board level and during budget time is, I've been visiting so many schools lately in my farewell tour, and I do see a lot of classrooms with more than 20, sometimes 25 25 kiddos in the classrooms at the elementary level. That's just a lot. And given the current teacher shortage, I would love to see some sort of a plan to hire instructional assistants, people who either aspire to be in the profession or not necessarily, but who are just attuned to our needs. Wouldn't it be wonderful if each classroom had an instructional assistant? I think that would be an early Christmas for the teachers. Thanks.
Commissioner Lomanak?
Thank you, Chairman Harris. I think Commissioner Clyburn made a really good point, and she's absolutely right. These tests track poverty levels across the board. The AP, once you get higher up in the AP exams, that's different because not everybody takes them, and it's a self-selecting group sometimes. But at this lower level, this SC Ready absolutely tracks poverty. 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, through 8th grade. And that's, I mean, that really gets at why I think, OG training is a must. But it's met its match when a kid shows up who just lost 2 family members to gun violence within 3 months, and they that family doesn't have access to mental health resources. And that's what a social worker does. But a social worker can't do that if they've got 2,000 families in 3 schools. So, I think the more bodies we can pack into these classrooms, and I get it. I know what's going on in your thought bubbles in your head. We know all this, but it's not like they're just people raining down. But I think this is a reminder that every teacher and every staff member that we lose this year will be harder to replace than this past year. And we've got to keep almost 100% of the people we have, and we've got to convince them to do the after-school programs and the summer school programs, and then we're going to have to find ways to build up our instructional assistants and our social worker and our parent engagement specialists and really increase the numbers so that they can provide the support to our teachers who are doing all this extra training and all this extra work that's necessary. But I think it'll be a struggle to lift that ceiling for these students that we've really struggled with. Thank you, Chairman Harris.
Thank you, Commissioner Lomanak. I'm going to piggyback in a minute on what you said. Commissioner...
You want to go ahead and go right now? Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Commissioner King?
Yeah, and one additional thing I want to say is, or maybe two, is one is a remark on librarians and guidance counselors. A lot of these folks are actually telling me, Ms. King, the district puts the accent on literacy, pushing literacy, and we all get it. That's what we want. And guess what? Especially as a librarian, that's our job. It's our job to support literacy with our students, of course, but also with our teachers. But we're so bogged down counting computers that are broken, computers that come back, computers that need to be redistributed, and other tasks that are not related to their training and to what they're supposed to do to support literacy. That has to change. And the other profession that is really feeling the burden of not doing the job that they've been hired to do are guidance counselors. A lot of them are saying, we, in the end, have so many other duties than we should be concentrating on our kids. And they can have a piece of that mental health and have some time with the kids and guide them, etc. But they're pulled in so many different other directions that are either bureaucratic or school function of any kind of some of the sorts. We've got to be able to really protect the integrity of each profession that is really supposed to serve the children in a purest way.
Okay. Commissioner Bishop, before I go to you, I do want to piggyback right quick on Commissioner Lomanak before I lose my thought. I think Commissioner Lomanak struck gold. When you look at that data, it goes along the poverty line. Some of us at this table don't understand what that looks like. There is no magic wand that can be waved over any school. So when we go and have conversations with principals and discourage them because their scores may not be where someplace else is, it's wrong. Okay? Poverty is exactly what it is. It's a lack of something. It could be a lack of a parent in the home. The illustration he gave, you know how many students we have in this district lost a loved one in COVID? We have kids that became orphans. Families was wiped out from COVID. So sometimes when we sit here and have these discussions, we want to point the finger and this is this and this shouldn't have that and this should have been this, that, and other. Let's pause for 1 minute, because you can't get blood from a turnip. It's impossible. You have teachers, you have principals, you have leaders in this district that are doing everything humanly possible to educate kids. But I think we miss something very important. Ms. Jennings said the children come to us behind. So what are we doing? We are playing catch up. That isn't because Richland 1 don't have the resources. It's because we're playing catch up. It's because, and let's own the stuff. When they leave us, they go to a home that may not have Wi-Fi. So if the district don't park a bus within 200 feet of that house, they can't go online. In my community, there are streets, I can name them, that have Wi-Fi accessibility, and then the next one doesn't. So how do we educate the kid when he got an assignment to do at home? How is that possible? It's not. It's not. So to Commissioner Lomanak, you struck gold. We must deal with poverty if we want to move Richland 1. Everybody don't live on a bus route. Everybody's not near McDonald's with Wi-Fi. Everybody's not near the Richland County Public Library. What their community don't have, they don't have. In some of these communities, if it wasn't for the churches, the pastors, making things accessible to this district, we would be even further lost. But the key that everybody needs to leave here with is this: they came to us behind. There is no magic wand. We are growing kids. Every one of us that have had a child, there's a process. That baby did not come here talking and walking, because if it did, something is wrong. Mm-hmm. If the doctor spanked that baby and instead of it crying, it said, "Hey, mama, something is wrong," and you probably would have passed out. It's a process. Growth is a process. And when we disrupt the process with foolery and everything but keeping the main thing in this district is children. And I believe one of my colleagues spoke to this earlier. It's not about adult issues. It's about children. And you know what? We see more and more, to Ms. Hagwood's point, we have to even educate the parents. Learning has changed. We sit in a session the other day, and as a board and leaders of this district, they gave us some math problems. And I ain't gonna lie to nobody, I gave that marker straight to somebody else. Because that was third grade math, Commissioner Bishop, was it not?
Yes, it was.
But it's different. They wanted to desegregate the numbers. We were all standing looking like, what in the world is that? So learning change, it's evolving. Going back to training. When we go to these trainings and they show us as board members and professionals of what we have to do differently to be impactful in the classroom. You can't do it alone in the classroom. Learning is continual. So there has to be some support from the community. There has to be some support in the homes. And guess what? When we give that child that wraparound services, you're not going to tell me they won't flourish. Because I raised 4 in this district, in a rural portion of this district. And I just received internet access 2 or 3 years ago. And it wasn't because I couldn't afford it. It wasn't accessible. Hear what I'm saying. AT&T finally came out and gave ports for us to tap in. And those ports were filled up in a matter of days because people were dying to get access. So when we talk about the data, going back to Mr. Lomanak's point, we've got to talk about what creates the outcome. The outcome is not because teachers are not teaching. The outcomes is not because we don't have resources in Richland 1. Sometimes the outcome is plagued by poverty. And until we deal with the elephant in the room, we can sit here and talk about a birth program, birth before school, but some feel, oh, it's tax money. Yeah, it's tax money, but the tax money belongs to everybody. Put your money where your mouth is. He says where your treasure is, where your heart is, there will your treasure be also. If we're concerned about growing and educating all children, all means all, then let's do what we need to do. And stop being concerned about my 4 and no more, and let's be concerned about the entire district. And understand that the disparities that may exist uptown may not be the same in town or around town or out of town. We've got to make sure we look at every aspect. Dr. Witherspoon, you and your team does an excellent job of looking at how we grow the child from where they are, not waving a magic wand. We own the data because it's ours. But we came off of a pandemic where children lost their family members. Some lost their mom, dad, grandparents, and the aunts. Ended up in orphanages. See, we don't talk about those things. We have children that don't eat if we don't feed them, Aaron Bishop. Okay, let's talk about it. We have a CEP program, Sharon Matthew Hazel, that makes sure that children get to eat for free because they can't afford to pay. Now, if you think all of that stuff don't impact learning, that you don't know whose house you're going to sleep at tonight because mama got evicted yesterday. So we sleeping in the car. I have a classmate that graduated from this district, told me something the other day that blew my mind. He said, y'all didn't know it, but my 4 years in high school, we were homeless. And we would wait till all of y'all left school and my dad would come and get me and we slept in the car. Real issues. Talk about the real issues, find solutions for the real issues, and then we can get the real results. But until we have some serious dialogue on making sure that we give these children that God has entrusted to us real support, not just at the school, Dr. Witherspoon, real support, helping these parents that don't understand their assignments sometimes. I'm one of them. Don't have kids in school anymore, but these kids come to me wanting help for their homework. I'm like, I can't help you, because that stuff is on another level than what we're used to, Jamie, how we were taught these things. And that's why educating and empowering the community and parents is so critically important. And I promise you, the day we realize that, and the day we structure ourselves to stop trying to tear it down and help build it up, we'll move Richland 1. Because in spite of the many synonymous attacks, we still move kids. We still grow them. But imagine what we could do if we all put our shoulder to the wheel. Imagine what we could do if instead of being an investigative reporter in the schools, going in there and helping to push and motivate teachers and encourage principals to keep doing what they're doing and encourage parents to come out to data nights and talk about the data and how their child is impacted in all of this, we can change the game. It's time to change the game. Don't talk about it, let's be about it. Let's change the game. I'm done. Commissioner Bishop.
I think you covered a whole lot that I was trying to bring up, so I appreciate you, Madam Chair. Dr. Witherspoon, in this presentation, it mentioned quarterly analysis of the usage of intervention services or resources. I'm very interested in what that looks like because I think that's going to be a strong step in the right direction. But I'm looking forward to being a meeting with us as a board, and even further, maybe even in the community, and really going to the heart of the matter, because when you do these quarterly analysis, you're going to be looking for indicators of things that need to probably be abandoned or things that need to be increased. And one of the things I saw, Dr. Witherspoon, that was standing out on your report here. It says strategy to support success in grade 9. And it says focusing on root causes for lack of success. And it furthermore goes on to say removing barriers. It's been said by 2 commissioners tonight. Poverty. I would like to probably word it as in something that is regarded as a lack of social emotional health. And so when you do your MTSS program and you bring that into the quarterly meetings, I think we're going to find that the social emotional learning loss that has been impacted by COVID is probably very closely associated with the socioeconomic challenges. I'm looking even at your data right here. It says student growth on SC Ready, you got economically disadvantaged. That's socioeconomically challenged environments. That quarterly meeting, Dr. Witherspoon, is going to be critical to this board, because this board is going to have to say, which way do we push? Which way do we step in? What do you need? Because, yeah, we got a strategic plan, but if we aren't in that trajectory as a board, because this is our plan, we got to do our job. I don't think it's going to be on just one person or 2 people or 3 people. It's going to be on all of us as a community, because that's just not a school plan to me. That's Richland County. That's us. That's all of us trying to make sure that we are emphasizing what it says is the root causes of the lack of success. So, Madam Chair, you said everything I was going to try to preach, teach, or reach about. But here's the real truth. It's going to take all of us. When we find out what that root is, it may be parental.
Y'all can sit down. Y'all sit down. Y'all know we in church right now. We'll call y'all back up.
It may be parental. It may be social. It may be, pulling state, house, city, county, church, politics, businesses, everyone to the table to try to help infuse all resources to making this area get better. That's all we're talking about. That's right. I mean, it's a lot on this thing to digest, but that is what literally stood out to me, the quarterly meetings that you're going to do, and hopefully in those meetings you get to the root cause and of the lack of success and help remove those barriers. If we do that, I think we'll be in the right trajectory. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner Bishop. Commissioner Clyburn?
So I was going to say something a little earlier, but Commissioner Bishop just brought up something related to what I wanted to point out as well. The partnership part with our community partners. We need to have them at the table as well, and I definitely agree with that. But we also need to take a hard look at ourselves in statements that we make, our actions that we take. Commissioner Bishop, trying to get your attention. We need to recognize, the part that we play in some of this as well. Because some of us, and I'm just saying in the community, they want it to persist. They want poverty to persist for whatever reasons. And, publicly people deny it, but privately it happens. And it's hurtful to me because it affects all of us, no matter whether they realize it or not, it affects all of us. So we have to call it out when we see it and when we hear it. And I don't think that, the statements that Chairwoman Harris made, the presentation that was given, we know a lot of our kids are coming to us behind, but we're not satisfied with that. And I don't think, Chairwoman Harris, her statements acknowledging it is not accepting of that current reality. That's where we are right now, but that's not where we're going to stay. So I just wanted to point those things out.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. Commissioner Bishop.
Chairwoman, I'll be very brief, but it's one last part that that jumped off the presentation. The word robust and recovery as well is really speaking to what is going to be required or even somewhat demanded on teachers. And in your quarterly report analysis, Dr. Witherspoon, I would love to see what even is the health of your staff. Because if this is being, I mean, this is a lot for me to just take on just now.
Oh, yeah.
And if this is getting rolled out and put in an administrator's hands, who's going to put it in, executive director's hand, who puts it in the principal's hand, goes all the way down to the teachers, this is going to be a lot. And if we don't consider the health of our teachers, you're gonna see a lot of teachers worn out because we got robust. And I get it. We want children to move further. We want children to be better. We want better scores. Just don't overlook the teachers. Right. Do not overlook these teachers. Do not take them for granted. Do not just make them think they're robots because it's robust. As a district and a community, when we do the quarter analysis, we need to check in with them.
That's right.
And all our staff.
That's right.
If you put an extra instructional assistant in there, check on that person.
Mm-hmm.
If we got extra social workers or psychiatrists, check on those people. It's going to be critical that all of this that is, instructional support and success with every subgroup, a cohort, don't forget about that group called the teachers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Bishop. Commissioner Devine, you've patiently waited.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Witherspoon and your staff. We appreciate that. Everything that has been said from Commissioner Harris and Commissioner Bishop, Clyburn, I appreciate what y'all said. I agree with it as well. Just a few thoughts and then a few questions. Let's be reminded that the scores are the scores. The numbers are the numbers. I wish we could put a line between 2019 and 2020. We literally started over in 2020. We can't go back and compare to 18, 17, 16, 15, any of those other years. That's in the past. We need to take where we are now and move forward. Commissioner Bishop hit what I want to talk about. We as a board need to discuss this strategic plan. This strategic plan as of 2019, in my opinion, is no longer a document that we should be able to use. At some point, Dr. Witherspoon, Madam Chair, I would like for us to have that discussion regarding the strategic plan and give the State Department and appropriate persons so we can have that discussion, because we really need to look at this plan and move forward with something that is more equitable and reasonable as to where we are post-COVID at this point. That plan was done in 2018, 2019, ends in 2024. We do have a few years left on that. I think we need to adjust that. I think Commissioner Bishop hit it on the head. We need to make sure that we're in alignment with where we are now. Again, the scores are the scores. Again, there's no other district in this state like Richland 1. We're urban, suburban, and rural. So if people want to compare us to other districts, I'm going to push back on that, because you can't compare us to other districts. You may say, okay, you have high poverty, you got X amount of students, X amount of employees. Okay, that's on that level. But I would challenge anybody to compare us to another district, and we're a capital city. There are only 40 other non-capital cities in these United States that I know of. So we need to be careful when we look at comparing District 1 to other school districts. And then finally, as I said earlier, let's look at where we are as an organization, as a district. Where is it that we want to go? Let's look at our numbers. We have a baseline, if you will, 2021, going into 22. This would be our baseline. I say use these numbers and go forward if we want to use a comparison going forward. because we know that, again, pre-COVID, everything was fine. We had a major disruption. It wasn't just we was out for a flood or snow days or something else, but this was a major disruption for our families, for our students, for our community, for the world.
That's right.
So I would challenge us to look at this strategic document. That's what belongs to this board and this community. Come back together at the table. Let's sit, let's have these conversations. And I'm glad Dr. Witherspoon mentioned about the meeting on on Thursday in the Eau Claire community. We're going to sit and break down and unpack some of this information to that community as well. We want to make sure that our stakeholders are aware of what's happening as well. So those of you who can make it over to Eau Claire High School on Thursday, we encourage you to come out to do that. I'm sure that's going to be in the superintendent's report. But again, you all have said it. We got to continue to expand summer school, provide additional tutors, provide additional counselors and interventionists as needed, as the budget can withstand. But we also have to maybe cut some things, if you will, to hire some additional folk. Now, we're kind of, in my opinion, getting away from what schools traditionally do. We're now getting into some of the social realm of what's happening in the world. So there's more things put on school districts across the state and across the country. So we have to be careful in that balance. I want lower classroom sizes, and Richland One has been a big proponent of that for all of my years on this board. So we've done that well. Now we know we have a teacher shortage, but some that is on this board as well. This is a school district. This is not a hiring or employment agency. We know we have some issues, and staff is continuing to work on that. But we as a board have to be careful in what we put out in the community. Let's be real careful with that as an organization, because if you continue to talk about me, I may not want to continue to work for that organization. So we as a board, it starts with us. We got to continue to provide those bonuses for teachers and staff as appropriate. Put adults and students together to create those relationships. We know we have some safety issues, and because these students have relationships with the SROs and with various teachers, those things were reported to the appropriate staff. We got to continue to monitor programs and have mentoring programs that we need in our school. And I look forward to Dr. Witherspoon, to you rolling that mentoring program out soon. So that we can get that rolling. We need to provide, and Commissioner Harris mentioned this, provide support to children who have lost parents or caregiver to COVID. We have a number of children, young people in this community, whose family has just been disrupted. Just completely disrupted. So let's be mindful of those young people. And then last, food insecurity. Again, it's been stated earlier, if we don't feed our young people, they won't eat. If we don't feed our young people, they won't eat. I was glad to be on this board when the CEP program came, and I got an opportunity to vote for that for our young people. And that has been very helpful. You go to the after-school programs, you will see some of them get a full meal, a dinner. You will see some of them get snacks and after-school, aftercare, and our athletic tutorial training. They will get the same food commodities that we have that's comparable to any local restaurant. So again, I am proud to be a part of this organization. We look at our numbers, we look at our scores. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes this is an uncomfortable conversation that we're having. But it's more uncomfortable if our kids can't read or write. So let's make sure that we continue to have these conversations and continue to push forward those things that we need to make our young people the best for tomorrow. With that said, Madam Chair, I will yield the floor back to you. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner King?
To Commissioner Bishop's point, I think I understood what you said. But I just want to make sure that it's not, again, a top-down approach. We have to value our teachers. I don't think they feel valued. They're not enough at the table. In fact, you know, I could issue a challenge that there could be a pilot program in this district. Select one school, remove the principal, and let the teachers run the show. and let's see what happens. They have to tell us what they need. You know, Chick-fil-A has a saying that says, we only have two kinds of employees. Those who serve the chicken and those who serve the chicken. Our children are in the schools, and that's where our teachers are, and they're serving the chicken, and the administration and the rest of the district has to serve them. Why not see what happens? You know, one year, and I'll give her name because I just really enjoy her, is Miss Lattimore at John P. Thomas. In fact, I just had a lovely visit with her. But she did not have very good results for a number of years. And then one year, all of a sudden, something just kind of opened up, especially in history. And I said, Miss Lattimore, what happened? She said, you know what, Miss King? I let it go, and I let the teachers run the show. I let them have more. I trusted them more, and it just happened. Our teachers need to be at the center, at the head of the table. Let's stop this. We've got lots of resources, but I do believe that it's way too much of a top-down approach. They know what they need. They know what their children need. They know the children who are orphans or who have lost a loved one. They can identify those needs. We need to serve them.
Okay, any other comments from any board member? Again, thank you so very much for the data presentation. As you can see, it is a very passionate topic because, truth be told, that's the only reason we are all here. Nobody would have a job if a parent hadn't had a child that has to be educated. So it's a much needed discussion. We appreciate what you're doing, but to the point that Commissioner Devine made, it's the data, we own it, but the thing now is, what do we do from here? The launch pad, Dr. Witherspoon, we're ready to take off. Where do we go from here? We talk about community engagement and getting some things back in play because COVID was rampant to Richland 1. It was. We lost a lot of employees, if you might remember. We're grieving ourselves, you know, but in spite of that, we still do what we need to do. So, you know, Dr. Witherspoon, I'm allow you to speak because everybody has spoken up here. And normally when it's this level of passion about a subject, it's good to hear from the superintendent. I know you have a superintendent's report, but I think you hear the cry of this board. We know where we are. We know the challenges we face, but I think that one of the things we cannot hide from is that P word called poverty and how we address it in totality. And let's see what happens. It goes back to something, I believe it was Senator Mike Fannin said in a session. He said, the state of South Carolina has more money now than it's ever had, but we've never fully funded education in South Carolina. He said, what if we just decided for once to fully fund education and sit back and see what happens? So here we are as a district. We have resources. What if we do some things differently and see what happens? So I'm going to yield to you, Dr. Witherspoon, on that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, for your comments. I want to thank staff for that presentation. As we talk about student achievement growth, as indicated, and certainly by the passionate and robust conversation that you all have had as a board, it's complicated. If there was a silver bullet to address any one of these things, we would have had a different conversation a number of years ago. And perhaps a different conversation this evening. But it is an all hands on deck, as you've said. Some of these, and we talk in this district a lot, and you've heard me talk about this for a number of years, about those leading and lagging indicators. These scores and some of these outcomes are lagging because we've gone through a school year, and here's what they are. But some of those lagging indicators, again, the attendance, all those things. I don't want to run down those things because robust, again, conversations. So you all have hit the nail on the head. We've got to look at this from all aspects, not one. And it is something that we have to need to do as a community. Poverty is we've used that in this district and came from Francis Marion and some of the work they've done with that Poverty Institute and so forth is anything that's missing. Whether that's those that don't fall in the economic disadvantaged category, and there are issues in that household that impact Commissioner Bishop's social emotional learning and social emotional well-being. Those things can manifest itself just as the lack of food and resources and those emotional scars and the like. So we have to, again, look at this, look at what are those aspects that we can deal with as a school district, and then what do we need our community to do, and partner with us and bring those things to bear. And we will continue to do that. Those community meetings, and I know that we do reach out and do that. So I will say to you, again, with the comments that have been made, we will certainly look at that sense of urgency, but that sense of strategic urgency. Mm-hmm. In terms of bringing those resources to bear, looking at some things differently. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. As was indicated in the presentation, sometimes we need to stop doing some things, as well as continue or look at doing some things differently. And certainly we're all committed to doing that. I look forward to coming back as we do, Madam Chair, members of the board, in those updates, in those retreats that we have, and share that information, and sharing that again in various communities in our district, because we're going to need all hands on deck to move that forward. So you certainly have our commitment in that regard. And we will continue to monitor those things. I will add, Commissioner Devine, to your point on the strategic plan, you're absolutely right. With those goals that are embedded, now the strategies, as that first slide that was put up from the academic response, if you will, that looks at that strategic plan, and just as we've indicated, that's a plan. And all plans can be modified, changed, and adjusted. And we will be coming back to you all this spring, again, with some of those goals that are lined up in the plan was passed in 19. We didn't know COVID was coming in 20 and in 21 and that impact. And some of those goals do need to be adjusted. Not that we're lowering any expectations or standards. I don't want anyone to misunderstand that. But what we have been through is real, and something that our previous accountability person would say is there are confounding variables that impact, and some of those adjustments do need to be made. But we don't want anybody to feel like that's a lowering of standards or lowering of expectations. But we will remain committed to student growth, to academic achievement, because that is around our core business. Certainly embedded and layered in that is the safety pieces, and safety can look at from various aspects, not only what Mr. Brown and his shop and we all provide, but some of those social emotional things as well. So, Madam Chair, board members, just know that we all remain committed to that course, and we look forward to continued meetings, discussions, work sessions, retreats, what have you, in marking what we're doing in that regard. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon. And I do want to own the accountability presentation. In our meeting, you did share with me that you only had some of the information, some was still embargoed. But I did ask Dr. Witherspoon when we were setting up the agenda for tonight's meeting to go ahead and share what we had. So that's why you didn't get the total package. And yes, there will be a follow-up accountability presentation on the other information once it's available. So I did want to make sure that my colleagues know that I did ask Dr. Witherspoon to go ahead and share what he had received, because the data is kind of drifting out slowly and piece by piece. The dates are changing from week to week. So I asked him to go ahead and share what we had so we can go ahead and get to working on turning that around. We'll move on now to the Office of Human Resources with Dr. Long with our HR and personnel updates.
Madam Chair, Board of Commissioners, and Dr. Witherspoon, the HR and personnel updates were provided for you all during executive session as information.
Okay, this is an information item. Floor is open for any questions or comment. Seeing none, hearing none, we'll move on to 12.2, which is the hiring of personnel. Dr. Long.
The administration recommends hiring all the teachers on the list for the 22-23 academic year. There are 13 teachers listed. The administration so recommends.
You've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved by Commissioner Clyburn, second by Commissioner Devine. I'm sorry, it was moved by Commissioner Myers and second by Commissioner Devine. We'll now open the floor for question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote. Let the record reflect the vote is unanimous. The hiring of personnel has been approved. Thank you, Dr. Long. We'll now move to the office of the board. 13.1 is a personnel matter presented by yours truly. That was evaluation reviews for employees with the initials of EW and KW. That is an information item. Floor is open for any question or discussion. Seeing none, hearing none, we will move on to 13.2, which is the board report. This is where the board has an opportunity to speak on activities that they've been involved in besides our normal chat with the chair and other activities that we do within our district. We have Commissioner Bishop.
Yeah, I just want to make an announcement, and this is to all of our public servants, which are teachers, by the way. October 31st is the deadline for loan forgiveness. Mm-hmm. Teachers are available to have loan forgiveness through the White House. Just look up the White House and Public Service Loan Forgiveness. Look up White House Public Service Loan Forgiveness and make sure you apply. They say the process is much easier. There has not been enough teachers applying for this loan forgiveness, and they're believing that I think almost $400 billion in loan forgiveness will take place. I hope that you are in the number. Thank you.
Okay, any other reports? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, we will move on to the Office of the Superintendent. Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Since our last board meeting, we were notified that Richland 1 has been selected to receive a $14.9 million Magnet School Assistance Program grant from the U.S. Department of Education. We will use the grant funds over a 5-year period to implement BLAST, Building Lasting Aerospace and STEAM Trajectories at 3 schools. A new school within a school aerospace magnet program at Watkins Nance Elementary School, a revised school within a school aerospace magnet program at W.A. Perry Middle School, and a revised school within a school national defense themed magnet program with 4 academies: pre-engineering, biomedical, cybersecurity, and aerospace at Columbia High School. BLAST aims to increase diversity through magnet programming, improve academic achievement, and encourage students to aspire to careers in aerospace and STEM-related fields. All students who live within the Richland 1 attendance zone will be eligible to apply to attend one of the Blast Magnet School programs. Bus transportation will be provided for accepted students. The program will begin August of 2023. The online application system will be open in December of this year, December 2022. Thank you to the MSAP Grant Project Director, Dr. Teresa Turner, and the entire grant writing team for their hard work. And again, congratulations, and we're proud that Richland won 2 in the state of South Carolina. I think Georgetown received a grant. There were 19 across the country in this round. Next, congratulations to 3 of our student athletes who won state championship titles at the South Carolina High School League State Swimming Championship this past weekend. Darden Tate of AC Flora High School won boys state championship titles in the 50-yard freestyle and in the 100-yard breaststroke. Hannah Montgomery, also of AC Flora, won the girls state championship title in the 100-yard breaststroke. James Koch of Dreher High School won the girls state title in the 100-yard butterfly. Congratulations to all 3 students, and we look forward to recognizing them formally at an upcoming board meeting. We also want to congratulate our own Dr. Quantina Hagwood, Executive Director of Early Childhood and Elementary Education, on being selected for AASA's, that's American Association of School Administrators, Aspiring Superintendent's Academy for Female Leaders. As a participant, Dr. Hagwood will work collaboratively with colleagues from across the nation. Highly successful female students will serve as faculty for the Academy. Female superintendents, rather, will serve as faculty for the Academy. Participants will attend in-person conferences, virtual symposiums, with mentoring in between those meetings to support their growth. This is a very competitive program, application process, and congratulations to Dr. Hagwood. I noted at our last meeting that we are partnering with Prisma Health again this year to fight the flu in our community. The first of 2 scheduled flu shot clinics was held on Saturday, October 8th at Lower Richland High School. The next flu shot clinic will be held Saturday, October 22nd from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Dreher High School. We encourage everyone to take advantage of this opportunity to protect yourselves and your families against the flu. Additional information about flu shots and these clinics are posted on our website at richland1.org. This week, October 10th through 14th, is National School Lunch Week. President John F. Kennedy created this observance in 1962 to promote the importance of a healthy school lunch in a child's life and to highlight the impact that it has inside and outside the classroom. The National School Lunch Program serves nearly 30 million children every school day. In Richland 1, our Student Nutrition Services team serves nearly 3 million meals to students each year. The theme for this year's National School Lunch Week observance is peace, love, and school lunch. So if you see our cafeteria staff and other student nutrition staff wearing the groovy attire this week, you'll know why. Thank you to our Student Nutrition Services team for ensuring that our students receive healthy and nutritious meals at schools, and especially when times of crisis when our schools are closed. And lastly, just to reiterate a point, I think Commissioner I mentioned and then Commissioner Devine mentioned, there will be an Eau Claire cluster meeting for parents and community at Eau Claire High School Thursday, October 13th, where some cluster-specific information will be shared. That will be at Eau Claire High School from 5:30 to 7 p.m. Madam Chair, this concludes my report at this time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Witherspoon, for your report. Commissioner Bishop, we'll open the floor now for questions or comments.
Madam Chair, I just want to make sure that Dr. Witherspoon didn't overlook that this is, I think, National
Anti-Bullying Month.
Yes. Bully awareness, I don't know which one it is, but let's be kind, let's be peaceful, love, and have a good lunch. Is that right? All right. Thank you.
Okay. Is it not also the Principals Appreciation Month?
Yes, it is. Thank you for that. We did send out something earlier in the week. This is National Principal Appreciation Month. A lot of things going on this month. We did send out something to recognize our principals, our school leaders, and we do appreciate what they do on a certainly a day-to-day basis, climate and culture in their respective sites, working with staffs and organizations that budgets and staff that probably exceed a whole lot of small businesses. So we appreciate their work and what they do, working with those leadership teams, teachers and staff in their respective sites, and that work too is certainly appreciated to our principals.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Dr. Witherspoon. Commissioner Bishop?
Madam Chair, since I'm spreading the love, why can't we not recognize that you just had a birthday?
Thank you.
All right, I should do that during board report,
It's okay.
but since it's love in the air.
Amen.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
Not
I'm the
just
big-
any
I'm the big
birthday.
5-0.
Okay, that's what I was about.
I know. I'm the big 5-0, and I'm very appreciative to be sitting where I sit right now, and that is advocating for the children of Richland 1, the district that made me who I am today. So I'm proud to be homegrown Richland 1. Any other reports from any other board member? Questions for Dr. Witherspoon? Commissioner Devine?
Thank you. Dr. Witherspoon, have we given additional thought to a Richland 1 Exhales Day for this year?
Yes, we will be bringing something to you as we close out this last fiscal year in that process. Short answer, yes. And in addition to some other R1XL things that we did last school year. But yes, there will be information forthcoming about that.
And Friday is a holiday. Friday is a teacher work day. Students are off, from my understanding.
Give me 1 second.
Staff is saying yes, so thank you.
Yes, okay.
You know the staff gonna know.
Yeah, they would know.
Any other questions or comments for Dr. Witherspoon? Just want to end, Dr. Witherspoon, again thanking you and our security team for a job well done this week in the midst of a lot of mishaps in the community across the state, in making sure that our children remain safe and our faculty. I just want to thank you all for your leadership and all that you've done in making sure that those schools remain safe and our children were still able to learn. Okay. If there isn't any other question or comment or discussion for the superintendent, we will now move to the last announcement, and that is that the next regular board meeting of Richland 1 Board of Commissioners will be held on Tuesday, October the 25th, 2022 at the Stevenson Administration Building. And if there's no objection from the board, thank you so very much for being here for 6 hours and 10 minutes. Consider yourselves dismissed and have a good night.